Okay, it's 10:30. I'll call the meeting to order. If you have your cell phone, please turn it off or mute. Becky, will you do roll call, please?
I'm just going to close this. It should come right up. Yeah. Mike Copine, Keen Hudson,
Present.
Katie White. Here. Angie Shippert. Here. Mike Pearson.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyone that's not a board member or department head, any reports to the committee to see if they would like to speak? I see none. Mr. Kitson, would you like to say something, sir?
with a 1.5% administrative fee, which is about $88,650 each. And we've been notified by the city of Dixon that they want to withdraw from this agreement, and they've sent us a certified letter that they will end this agreement at the end of the end of the year. And with that said, about 27% of it is in Lee County, or $49,000, which is not enough for us to continue to run Lee County tourism the way we have in the past. And we also know that the Lincoln Way Inn in Franklin Grove will be closing sometime this year, and that's about a $7,000 to $8,000. So that brings us down to around $40,000 a year. So our objective was to analyze, develop, and present a recommendation to the board for a sustainable tourism group which promotes economic and community development. So this focus group has met multiple times, and we met with three groups. We met with Discover Dixon, we met with Lee County Tourism, and we met with Black Hawk Waterways, and asked each of those three, what can we do for this amount of money? And after analyzing that, doing the pros and the cons, and sitting down as a team and going through this, we will be recommending to the county board that we go with this contract, a 2-year contract with Discover Dixon, where they will give us quarterly reports to the board on tourism activity. They will show us where our dollars are going, what we're getting in return for it. And we will have a member, Mr. Gascoigne is right now liaison to Lee County Tourism. He will be, or presumably he will be, to Discover Dixon's, have a seat on their board. And by the bylaws of Lee County Tourism, all funds, financial records, and other property should become the property of Lee County. Now, Wendy and I met with Lee County Tourism last week. We went down to Amboy and met with their group and explained all this to them, answered their questions. Now Wendy will be meeting with Diane Nicholson and working on an MOU for dissolving of their board and what has to be done. One of their concerns was they file taxes the end of the year. This will be happening the end of November. What are they going to do? So there's a lot of questions, and Wendy's going through that with them. So we'll see this Thursday on the agenda, I believe. Also, we'll revise the Lee County Tourism Ordinance to reflect the changes. Any questions? I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Kitson. Now we'll look at the minutes, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, April 10th, 2023. Everybody had a chance? If there are no changes or corrections, the minutes will stand as presented. Okay, animal control, Mrs. Zink, you have anything?
Sorry I was late. Couldn't find my car key. I first wanted to thank Angie for stopping out, and we had a little visit after last month's little discussion about cats. We are going to possibly get a few people together and come up with some ideas. There is a lady, like I said, in Paw Paw that is actually doing this for feral cats in town. And so she has agreed to help us also. So we're just gonna go down some avenues and maybe try to come up with some things to help a few towns with some cat issues. And I don't know how long ago it was. It's been a while. I discussed our kennel gates being destroyed by the dogs. They're pulling the welds off, and some of them get out. So I've come up with a few ideas. We still have the old kennels. They're galvanized. So I met with one of the salesmen, I guess you would call him, from AZZ, and they're willing to work with us a little bit. But the cost right now would be $3.50 a pound. I don't know what I have for pounds. I'm gonna weigh one, and I have 17 panels that I'd like to have dipped, just so we have those, because right now I am using, if I overflow, I am using some of those. I don't want the inspector to come back and say, you can't use them because they're rusty. So, and then the new doors, and by the way, I believe this is all my budget. I'm not asking for money. So the new doors that, we have, some of those are also, like I said, they pulled the welds off. We can interchange them because they're the same size. But if I have to use the overflow, I have a welder, a guy that will put on, I don't know if anybody knows what crib panel is. It's the old panels that they used to use for crib to dry out in the country on farms. Anyway, it's really heavy. I don't know if it's 9-gauge wire or something like that, but we do have some on our farm. So he said that he can take out the bad piece and put in a new piece. So I don't have a cost on that right now, but just kind of a start on what's going on. I think that's all I have unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
Next is Circuit Clerk. Ms. Johnson cannot be here today, but she did advise that didn't have anything to report on other than her office is fully staffed and running smoothly. And there is no news is good news. So. Next, I don't see Mr. Partington or Judge Ackert or Mr. Thompson here, so we'll move on to Emergency Management Agency. Mr. Lally.
Just, I think I'm on the agenda, but otherwise we've got about 40,000. We picked up about 40,000 sandbags free from the Army Corps of Engineers. I coordinated with Carroll County, so we split those. They provided transportation. I bought lunch for the day, so we're pretty even on picking those up. So we gained roughly $15,000-$16,000 for nothing.
Nice work.
Kevin, do you want to go ahead and address your request on the agenda for the
sure.
contingency line item?
Yep.
Just a reminder to everybody, we kind of changed the formatting here, and it's been an evolving process. But what we're looking to do to help you guys out is if you want to go ahead and give your complete report, including any action items that you may be requesting while you're giving your report, that means then when you're done, you can head out if you need to. So yeah, we'll go ahead and have you address that too.
Okay. There's a site, Gov Deals. I don't know if anybody's ever been on it, but what they are is they're a auction firm that takes government assets and sells them online. They have almost anything you want. If you're looking for something for the county, I'd recommend you go to govdeals.com, find it, but it may be at different locations. So I found a tower trailer. It was made by Illumina Tower, which is one of the leading manufacturers of crank up towers. This tower was it's a 2017 build. It was probably either a radar tower or a camera tower that belonged to an agency that were disposing of it. Again, it's 2017. It's all solar powered. Batteries were in it. The camera was missing, or the radar sight was missing on the top of it. It cranks up to 35 feet. My use would be to replace 911 loses their cell tower. We could bring it in, crank it up, and get them back on the air with communications. We could use it for events like Depot Days or Petunia Festival by putting cameras on it and watching crowds of people. With things that have been happening lately in the world, I think it's a good idea to have eyes on. And I just got the call from Dixon PD that they'd like the camera system back again this year for Petunia Festival. So this Illumina Tower was in the $90,000 price range, new. It was on auction for a bid of $6,000. I didn't have $6,000 in my account. I talked to the county board chairman. He forwarded me to finance, and finance said no, because it needs to be on my budget and that I should take that out of contingency. My budget does not have a contingency. I asked a few years back about that, and they said, no, we'll just take that out of. So I'm kind of in between not knowing what to do here. So looking to maybe take my emergency management preparedness grant, which is an annual grant, and moving that into my contingency. So last year's grant money, because we wouldn't know what it's going to be every year to the dime, what could move into that contingency line item, and then I would have contingency for things like this that would happen. And I think this is on the finance agenda also. But with things that, like Highland Park, you know, it'd be a good thing to have eyes on the street and see things that could happen or will happen.
Okay, any questions for Kevin?
I just had a question with the grant. Is there anything with the grant itself that would permit you from doing that?
No,
Okay.
most, and I can check on this, but to the best of my latest knowledge, most of the departments get their grant back into their budget to continue their office.
Okay,
But I can check with state and make sure that that's permitted.
okay, thank you.
Quick, excuse me, do other departments have contingency funds like this?
Not typically, it kind of depends on the department. Most of the contingencies, certainly to any department that is under the umbrella of the general fund, we have a general fund contingency line item that most departments go under. Kevin, I'm not, just to follow up to yours, are you looking for something to be this year, or are you looking to add this to your normal budget request this coming year for budget process?
I was looking for this year in case this comes back around again and something's available. What I didn't add in there was, this was in Tampa, Florida. So that's a ways to go get something, but through cooperation and coordination, we were able to find a carrier that would transport that back to Dixon for nothing.
Any other questions for Mr. Lally? Does anybody have any other recommendations? I'm going to make a recommendation that and propose that this topic go through the annual budget process. I need a motion for that.
Second or first?
I'm sorry. I should say, do we want to recommend that this go to finance?
Yeah,
Okay. Motion made by Ms. White, second
I'll second it.
by Ms. Shepherd. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
the same? Mike?
Aye. Oh, I'm a yes.
Okay. Do a vote.
Sorry if there was
Okay.
a delay.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. All right. Probation.
Last month, I had made mention about the Dependent Children's Care Fund that we have. That's money that we get from County General to house minors at the detention facility, either as a disposition on their offense or at the time of arrest. There's $27,000 that I am budgeted for each year with that. Typically, I have money left over, but over the last several years, that's been dwindling. This past month, just to put it on your radar, my bill was $12,000. We had 4 juveniles in detention last week. We're slowly getting those released. So I'm just putting it on your radar for right now. My intention is to be here next month and request more money for that budget, for that line item. I should have just a little bit left after this invoice here recently to get me into the month of June. But I just wanted to put that out there for right now. Another thing, if you've looked at our reimbursements from the state, just as a reminder, our office gets, or the county gets reimbursement from the state for salaries for all except one in full funding. That one position is reimbursed for $12,000. The county picks up that remaining amount. Otherwise, all reimbursements are from the state. You might notice that there have been no reimbursements given from the state up to this point. The administrative office put a new plan in place so that they would not submit reimbursement money to the counties until the annual plan that I prepare is approved. I just got that approval letter this week, so we should start receiving reimbursement here soon for those salaries. Just to keep in mind, my salary reimbursement is on the state fiscal year, so it goes July 1 to June 30, which is a little bit different than what the county fiscal year is. So there's always a difference in that. And just a reminder too, we are up for union negotiations this year, which would probably be starting within the next couple of months. As those continue to evolve, I'll keep you up to date on those. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Stewart? Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks.
Next, the sheriff. Sheriff, before you start, would you come up here? I have something to read to you.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
This is a certificate of recognition presented to Lee County Sheriff Clay Whalen. In appreciation of 3 consecutive months without a request from the Lee County Public Safety Court Services Committee, dated May 15th, 2023.
Oh, boy. Somehow knew I was going to get baited on something. Well, as far as my update, as of last Thursday, I was up to full staff, but I received a letter of resignation from a correctional deputy on Friday. So we will be hiring in the near future. We're looking at posting that out on the websites. We also are preparing for upcoming contract negotiations. I've been reaching out to a number of agencies in our area to try and get comparables so that we can make a good informed decision. Hopefully we're having a hard time attracting candidates. Hopefully we can retain them too, because several area agencies have lateral transfers. So they will bring them up at, 10-year steps, bring them right in. So we could conceivably lose some very experienced deputies, and I'm afraid of that. That's all I got. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I've got a question for
I'm
you,
sorry.
Sheriff. What's your biggest competition in terms of like where officers are going?
Dixon.
Dixon?
Yeah, we've
And-
lost several deputies to Dixon. Yeah,
What makes it that way? Do you have any sort of?
it's the pay.
Mhm.
So I believe we're putting out for correctional deputy, starting salary is 52,000. Dixon is currently advertising for a lateral applicant police officer and 60,000. So disparity of about $18,000 right there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Clay, so we don't do the lateral transfers like the city does? Is that what you're saying?
We do, however, ours isn't as enticing.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions for Sheriff Whalen? Okay, thank you. Mr. Boonstra. Sir. Do you have anything you'd like to share with this committee, sir?
Not too much to report on my end. It's been a busy couple of weeks. We've had attorneys in and out of the office, putting out fires here and there, helping out with law enforcement and search warrants, and obviously charging some folks over the last couple of weeks, as you may see in the newspaper. The biggest thing we've been working on right now is dealing with the collection side of this. We had a pretty disappointing collections month last month. We only received $75 from the collections agency. So we're trying to regroup there to figure out if there's going to be another route we're going to go, if it's going to be continuing with the same collections agency we're with right now, or if we're going to be moving to a different direction. So that's really what the focus has been in the office, aside from busy pretrial calls and the like.
Any questions for Mr. Boonstra? Thank you, Charlie. Okay, abandoned properties, Ms. Ryerson.
Good morning, everyone. In your onboard packet is a very high-level overview of the activities of the Abandoned Property Focus Group. And so you'll see highlighted there specific addresses and parcel numbers for those properties that have kind of rose to the top, you might say, in terms of the focus of the Abandoned Property Focus Group. Specifically, I want to draw a one to your attention, and that is 2500 West 4th Street. That may sound familiar to you in that it was a abandoned and gutted mobile home out on 2500 West 4th Street. So we have removed the unsafe conditions by removing the mobile home, and we have capped the well or secured the well by capping it and sealing it. So we were at a point now where next steps were to advertise the property for sale. County's financial policies allow us to go one of two directions. We can either hire a realtor, which meant, of course, paying realtor fees, or we could follow a sealed bid procurement process. So an advertisement went out in the local newspaper. Both adjacent landowners were personally contacted and made aware that the lot was for sale. On last Friday at 2 p.m., we had the sealed bid opening. We had two responses. The high bid was one of the adjacent landowners, and that bid was for $5,006. They were the highest bid. Moving forward on your agenda for this month will be the formal board approval to go ahead and sell that property. We will be conveying it by quitclaim deed. We did not want to incur the additional expense of a title search and warranty deed. That was, by the way, laid out in the procurement documents, the bid documents, that this would be conveyed by quitclaim deed. So it'll be on your agenda to look at. By the way, just in terms of cost of that particular one, we're in the range of about $16,000 that we expended to get the property through the tax sale process, then remove the mobile home, seal the well, and of course there was asbestos that needed to be mitigated. So we're at about $16,000 costs, of which now we'll have about $5,000 reimbursing us for some of our costs. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions about any of the other properties that are on the list, but the list is in there and you're welcome to review that.
Yes, Mr. Friel.
Quick question, Wendy. Is there any way that this is for down the road, but can that money be put back into the abandoned properties fund?
Well, that will be a board decision. It technically, because the abandoned property fund though came from ARPA dollars, we're not putting it back into the ARPA line item, obviously. We want to keep the grant dollars separate. But if the board chooses to reallocate that $5,000 back towards the efforts of the Abandoned Property Committee, you certainly could do that, but that's a board decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Ryerson? Okay, thank you, Wendy. Any unfinished business? Doesn't appear to have any. New business? We already did that. The board approval, vacant lot for 2500 West Street. But we need a motion to move this bid approval to executive.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. White. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Say yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, motion carries. Okay. Amboy Police Dispatch Agreement, Ms. Ryerson, please.
Certainly. So there has been a small group led by board member Tom Kitson to work with the city of Amboy to renew their the police dispatch agreement. We've had a dispatch agreement with them since 2011, and this is just, and typically that's been a 3-year agreement. We're at the end of our most recent 3-year agreement at the end of April. So we're looking to renew that. We did present a proposal to the Amboy City Council and Mayor that would change the methodology to reflect a very similar or comparable to what we're doing with the city of Dixon, which is based on the call volume. So the amount of call volume that comes in for Amboy that the dispatchers deal with, their contract intergovernmental agreement will now reflect a proportionate amount of the expense based on that proportionate amount of call volume that comes into the dispatch center. What that means is, in terms of annual revenue, they were give or take at about $21,000 annually that they were contributing towards our dispatch expenses. And that will go up to about $26,500 in year one. And we do have the contract calls for the math behind the scenes to be calculated each and every May, essentially. So each and every year, we'll look at the call volume for Amboy, we'll look at our costs, and Amboy is agreeing to pay essentially a certain percentage based on call volume of our costs. And again, that's comparable to what we're doing with the city of Dixon. So on your agenda for today, we're looking for a recommendation to move that forward to the full board for inclusion on their agenda.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Sheriff Whalen, does this, your staff's already included in this since it's been an ongoing thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and we did work with, we worked with Clay on that, as well as Shelley from 911, and State's Attorney's Office was incorporated in to review the agreement. So, and then, like I said, Tom Kitson and myself.
Yes, this just helps defray some of the overall costs.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to move the intergovernmental agreement between the County of Lee and City of Amboy for police dispatching, call taking, telecommunication services to the executive committee for the inclusion on the May County Board agenda?
All motion.
Motion by Ms. Schiffer, second.
Mike.
Mike,
Mike, second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, motion carries. Okay, resolution reappointment of William Ogan to the Ohio Fire Protection District. Included in your onboard is a copy of the resolution and the county board request for appointment form. Is there a motion to move the resolution for reappointment of William Ogan to the Ohio Fire Protection District to the Executive Committee for inclusion on the May County Board agenda?
All
Yes.
motion.
Motion by Ms. White, second.
Mike seconded it.
Mr. Pearson. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, the same? Okay, motion carries. Okay, is there any need for an executive session? Okay, seeing none, need a motion for adjournment? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Friel?
Wendy, did you want to talk about the RFP?
I certainly could. Thank you for reminding me. I looked around the room, though. Tell me who was not in the room for the meeting this morning. Angie joined us by Zoom. Did you hear
okay.
that? Okay. Mike might be the only one that didn't. So for Mike's sake, I'll run through it again real quick. So you've probably been hearing us talk about this over the last few months. We've been researching an alternative method to the competitive bidding process that we would normally go through for example, the HVAC system in the courts building. There is an alternative method that's called Guaranteed Energy Savings Contract, in which it takes a little bit different path in that you identify a qualified provider to work with the county and then enter into a negotiated procurement process based on the county's desire for energy saving projects. Again, HVAC might be one of them. Overall building automation might be one of them. New windows might be one of them. So the way the process works is you first identify through an RFP competitive process qualified providers. By the way, we've gone through that process, and last week we had an RFP opening. So we identified and had two different companies that applied or provided information. So that process then moves now to the county board for approval eventually. But the overall arching process is once we identify and select that qualified provider, then we end up moving into the second phase of the process, which is that negotiated procurement. That's when the county board sits down with that qualified provider. They're going to tell us you could do everything from windows to LED lights to HVAC systems, and we're going to decide based on what we have for financial resources, based on what we might save for energy savings. Then they will develop a guaranteed energy savings contract in which the qualified provider that we work with will put on paper, we guarantee you will save this much over the course of the next 10 or 20 years. It can be up to 20 years. You're going to save this amount of money. And thereby the point being, or the concept being, is that the amount of money you're going to save in energy savings can be then, of course, reallocated towards the cost of the project itself. That's the point behind the entire statute. So that process is moving forward, and on your full county board agenda will be the selection of the qualified provider. And then we'll move into that phase 2, which is that more specific discussion to get us to a guaranteed energy savings contract with the qualified provider. By the way, selecting a qualified provider does not guarantee we're going to come to terms with that. If what they provide to us is more than we can afford or more than we want to do, that's where the negotiated procurement process steps in. We are under no obligation to actually sign a guaranteed energy savings contract. That will be up to us to make that determination once we have more information from that qualified provider.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions on the overall process? It's unique, and we're learning about it day by day, quite frankly.
Okay, we'll do adjournment again. A motion was made by Ms. White and second by Ms. Shipper. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, the same.